This video is presented by Adventure Capitalist.
Have you ever accidentally broken up a couple? What was the story? I was under the impression that they were in an open relationship as person A told me yeah, we are in an open relationship. I complimented person B on how well they seemed to be making it work who told me what. I assumed that I was set up to break them up. My ex liked to tell ladies he wanted to frick he was in an open relationship. In actuality I was down for threesomes but not just him secretly fricking whoever he wanted without telling me. He knew this and was just a jerk. They haven't been dating for long, but my roommate was about to get laid by this girl he was seeing for the first time. He texted me ahead of time so I could leave a condom in his bedroom. Sure, no problem, man. Without thinking, I just threw it on his pillow and went back to bed. Years later, he told me he hadn't quite sealed the deal yet. She saw the condom and left. Never came back. I guess I was supposed to put in his nightstand or under his pillow. Hahaha, we laughed about it. You forget the little chocolates and rose petals on the bed.
Build your business empire. Adventure Capitalist is celebrating their 6th anniversary. Let's get you up to speed if you haven't tried it or haven't played in years. My favorite part about idle gaming is that you can play anywhere without having the fear of dying mid-game. You only win and gain. On the bus or on the toilet, it doesn't matter. You can even play on your phone while waiting in the lobby of another game. That makes it the perfect game for your second screen. Download Adventure Capitalist during the next 6 weeks and get limited anniversary giveaways, bundles, sales, and more. Be sure you join in on the game every week to claim all campaign rewards. Documentaries. Yes, we've seen them. But what about gaming documentaries? Adventure Capitalist is creating a 5-part docuseries coming soon. The series will be posted on the Adventure Capitalist YouTube channel, showing the behind the scenes of a game studio. 50 million capitalists agree. Best idle game ever. Download Adventure Capitalist from the link in the description.
Friend was having some issues in his relationship with his girlfriend. He had moved in with her at her family's farm. After D&D at a mutual friend's place, we were out in the parking lot cleaning the snow off of our cars. I told him that I was on several dating websites, and I saw she had set up a profile and was browsing around. Specifically, I saw she had checked out my profile. He thanked me for letting him know and we went our ways. The next time I saw him, he was crashing at the mutual friend's house for the indefinite future. He had gone home and immediately confronted the girlfriend about it. They had argued through most of the night and he packed some of his stuff in the morning and moved out. Good friend you are. Best friend and his GF were having troubles. They had been together for almost 10 years and had started drifting apart. She was trying to make things better, but the more she tried to make him better, the worse it seemed to get. Had a chat with her one evening, told her it wouldn't be selfish to put herself first for once because everything she was doing at fixing the relationship was centered on making him happy. Few days later I got the news that she dumped him. My chat was brought up during the breakup. Friend was rather pissed off and blamed me for the split. Sucks that she brought you up, but realistically at the cost of a friendship, you did the right thing. Granted we don't have his side. Let it slip in front of friend's girlfriend that he'd been out at the pub with us the previous Saturday night. Only thing was, that was their anniversary and he'd told her he'd had to rush home to look after his ill auntie. That relationship lasted about 15 more minutes. I feel like if you're making up lies to not be with your significant other on your anniversary, you should seriously evaluate if you even want to be in that relationship. A few of my friends worked for a retailer in the customer service department. This retailer had another storefront about 50 miles away in a much more rural part of the state and they would hold corporate events and parties where the two offices would get together, so my friend had a bunch of buddies living 50 miles away in a really rural area. One of these buddies was getting married and wanted to come to the city to have his bachelor party. Well, my friend wasn't very social and didn't know what to do exactly, so he asked me to help plan everything. I said we should do dinner and go bar hopping and go back to our house to play video games. But my friend was insistent. We needed to hire a stripper. I said, did you ask your buddy if that was okay? Oh yeah, sure, it's fine. I said, okay, I'll call around and see if I can find a stripper that does private parties. I called around and found a moderately priced good looking stripper that did private events. I set it all up. The night of the party rolls around and we go out to dinner and my friend is talking loudly about how he got a stripper and I can tell that the groom is super uncomfortable with this. He says over and over, I don't want this. This is gonna be weird. My wife is going to kill me. Please, let's not. So I call and cancel. Friend still won't shut up about getting a stripper. The groom's married, enormous, active duty military friend gets into it and says, yeah, maybe we should get one. 5 seconds later a girl from the bar comes over to our table and says, I'm actually a stripper and I'd love to give you boys a private show. Come downtown to my penthouse and we'll have a good time. The groom and I are like, number, red flag, mistake, let's not do this. But my buddy and the military friend of the groom are gung-ho at this point and raring to go, so we go down to this chick's penthouse and she does a striptease, gives the groom a lap dance, gives us drinks from her bar. It's not the huge clusterfuck I thought it would be. We're all watching a basketball game on TV having a few drinks when we notice the married military friend and the stripper have disappeared. Shrug, maybe he's getting a lap dance too. He can take care of himself. They show back up about 10 minutes later and we all head out to go back to the groom's hotel. We show up and the bride-to-be and the wife of the military guy are standing outside with their arms crossed. As soon as military guy gets out, his wife runs up and slaps him and won't stop hitting him and crying. When he went off with the stripper he fricked her. While he was taking his pants off he accidentally butt-dialed his wife. She listened to the whole thing. Divorced a week later. Some years ago, working on a project with a guy from a different company, got friendly, talked about family, friends etc etc. He was married, had a couple of kids, had inherited a plot of land in Spain and always said he wanted to retire early and move out there. Time passes, project finishes. 6 months later, get a call from an estate agent. Would I fill out a reference for the guy as he is leasing a house short term? Sure, I say, fill in the form and then remember he had his identity stolen and it took him a year to sort it out. So I ring him, and the operator puts me through to his wife who worked at the same company. Hi, I say. We chat for a few minutes. I knew her as well. And then I ask her about the house you are renting. What house? She says. Yeah. I tell her I'll ring her husband and check what's going on. I can't get him. 40 minutes later I hear him come down the hallway. We worked on the same site. He walks in my office and I say, hi, have we got a problem? And he says, nah, don't worry. I was going to leave the B next Friday. You just brought it forward 8 days. Embarrassing. Damn, good story. When I was a car salesman, I invited my friend, young 20s, to come buy a car. Obviously he doesn't have the credit to buy, so his dad comes with him. I've known this friend and his family all throughout high school. Dad runs a small body shop and mom is a nurse, so not home often. But they are a nice family and they've always been welcoming of me. I pull the father's credit and it's bad, which isn't that big of a deal. I ended up seeing far worse over my years as a salesman. But the part we couldn't get around in terms of getting him a loan was that he was late on mortgage payments, more than just one payment. My manager told me that he could make a few calls and get him approved if the mortgage payments were up to date and he supplied proof that he paid them, but that there was no way any bank would take him without that. I called my friend, I didn't have his dad's number, and told him, as a friend, not as a salesperson, the situation. I was more concerned that his dad was late on mortgage payments yet willing to help his son get a car, not so much selling the car. One car sale is not a big deal. My friend listened and said he would talk to both mom and dad about the situation. I then didn't talk to any of them for a week or so, but I noticed the dad wasn't coming home anymore after I visited said friend every now and then. I noticed the friend and his siblings feeling more distressed than usual. They were usually a very happy bunch. And then I overheard things like, dad is going to drop me off home. I'm headed over to see dad. Their parents have been separated since, and it's definitely had a pretty huge impact on the younger siblings. Friends turned out mostly okay. Both of the younger ones are way more emotional dramatic than they used to be. Part of me feels awful for exposing the dodge mortgage payments that led to their divorce. I know I'm not responsible, but they lived happily before, even though they were oblivious to what the dad was doing to their finances. Yeah, this was going to come out sooner or later regardless. I was dating this woman, mid-30s, single mom. Except she wasn't single, she was married. He found out. Then I found out. Then they broke up. And naturally I didn't want to date a cheater, so I dumped her too. Spez. She got caught because she suddenly started getting Brazilians done when she met me. Husband knew that crap was a bad sign. Perfect username. My best friend hooked up with this dude who was my then boyfriend's friend. Dude mentioned that he had a crazy butt ex who was in the hospital for a serious surgery. I didn't think anything of it until I saw him months later, with the crazy ex by his side boasting about how much he cared and how thankful she was that he didn't leave while she had her health problems. I took her aside and told her the truth. My boyfriend at the time was peeved because it wasn't any of my business. Turns out he knew they were still together and was complicit in dude's cheating. For your information, in case anyone is wondering, a man willing to help his friend serial cheat on his literally possibly dying girlfriend, that man is probably not a good long-term partner. So yeah, I managed to break up 2 relationships with one stone air. I was at lunch with my buddy and his girlfriend. Let's call them Sean and Kate. Sean asked me where my girlfriend was, and I told him that I wasn't sure. She was doing some modeling or photography thing. He was surprised and asked if I was worried about her sleeping with that photographer. Sean believed that was how all that worked. To be fair, she had slept with a photographer, but that was well before I had met her. I told Sean I wasn't worried about it, we had good trust between the two of us. This is when it started to unravel. He, a little annoyed now, stated, "Don't you need to know where she is?" I then said to Sean, "I'm not her keeper, she can do what she wants. She doesn't owe me that." Kate's eyes widened and then narrowed and her brow furrowed. The gears were turning and she did not like that one bit. She turned to Sean and began asking why it mattered that I should know about her whereabouts, and it was clearly one of those mirroring moments. I don't think any of us realized the possessive nature of their relationship, but needless to say they broke up the next day. I still feel kind of guilty. I didn't mean to stir the pot. You did Kate a big favor. At a bar, talking to a guy. We get along. I'm drinking and feeling bold. So is he, apparently. We get comfortable with each other and act a little hoary, as people are wont to do when they are comfortable with each other. He gives me his number, and we part ways on account neither of us wants to get too involved just then. He texts me the next day. Turns out, the guy standing next to him was his boyfriend. Saw us, quietly let it happen, kicked the guy out. Now he's stranded at a gas station on the highway with everything he owns and some bags. No one to call, and nowhere to go. Asks if he can stay with me. I say no and block the number. I wanna feel guilty, but it's mostly his fault for not telling me he was in a relationship with the guy who was standing right next to him. Figure I dodged a bullet with that one and go on with the rest of my life and get Whataburger. I kinda feel like he was trying to scam you, hook up, get you to invite him over. Like, there never was any boyfriend. That's just the story he tells to get dudes to let him come crash smash. If that was the case, then even better that you blocked him. I've been this person. And I've also been part of the couple. I used to have a FWB that to my knowledge was very much single. One night, a couple hours after he had left my house, like 4 AM if I recall correctly, I got a message request from a random girl on Facebook, trying to quote from memory, "I've had it with him sneaking off to work emergencies and coming home smelling like another woman. I know it's you and you can just have him. I'm done." Sent her a message back apologizing and that I had no idea. Dude wasn't even really apologetic or embarrassed when I confronted him about it. Had no idea he was even casually dating someone, much less living with a woman. No mention or anything of her on social media. Never saw him out with a girl. Small town. Later found out they'd been together for a couple of years and she moved herself out not long after she sent that message. This post from the comment thread in the bombed posts. Post. Ooh boy. Been waiting years for this one. So back in my Erasmus days in Spain, European Uni exchange program, I was dating this Italian girl for a couple of months. While we were going out, she would occasionally get calls from her ex, who apparently wouldn't stop pestering her. The calls were in Neapolitan dialects, so I never really understood what they were saying, and she seemed curt and impolite, so I thought whatever, this guy needs to take a hint. Cut to a few months later, and me and Italian girl have since broken up. She asks me to come to a house party, and that her ex will also be there. Apparently he's come to Spain to win her back, as no one else at the party speaks Italian. She asked me to help keep him entertained, and that she would even throw in a bottle of whiskey to sweeten the deal. So being 23 and an alcoholic, I agree and go to the party. When I meet the guy, he actually seems really sweet and not the boorish misogynist I had in mind. The evening continues and a few whiskeys later we're getting on like a house on fire. We decide to head out as a group, and a few more drinks later I decide I should try and impart some advice for the poor fellow so that he won't frick things up. I tell him that she's having fun in her Erasmus year and that maybe he should wait until she's back home before trying to win her back. You know, boys of summer and all that. He gives me the strangest look and then starts thanking me profusely and walks off. Feeling a little confused but very drunk, I continue dancing and having fun until 5 minutes later when my ex and her friends grab me and start shouting in my face, "What did you say to him then? Did you tell him I'm single, etc." Needless to say, they were furious. As you probably guessed, turns out the poor guy thought they were still in a relationship. He hadn't come to Spain to win her back. They were supposed to go on a road trip across Spain together the next day. Guess if that happened, I was a pariah in their little group after that night, even though it was totally her fault for being both a cheat and an idiot. Oh well, that's Erasmus, TM. Including other people in their lives that has no idea about the lies and might misspoke without having a clue about it. Smart. I unintentionally caused a series of events that led a friend of mine, now just an acquaintance, to cheat on her husband and divorce him. Long story short, she and her husband met at university and were married shortly after graduation. The chain of events happened while I was unemployed and working odd jobs while searching for a real job. I was unable to work a weekend gig, and I told the event organizer MC to hire my friend instead. They end up falling madly for each other. She cheats on her husband with him, and then she files for divorce so she could have an actual relationship with her paramour. It never ever even occurred to me that they could be attracted to one another. I was also friends with the event organizer MC at the time. Now he's also just an acquaintance, and he's a middle-aged dude who isn't rich, charming or handsome. I'm married in a monogamous relationship, but have many friends who are polyamorous, and my wife and I would party with them regularly, but not participating in the open relationship stuff that would go down. We introduced another married couple that were friends of ours to some of these polyamorous friends, and they started getting invited to various gatherings. The wife in the couple got really interested in the whole polyamory thing, but the husband did not. They weren't communicating well and she started doing things with other people and getting mad that he was being so strict. At some point it went too far for the husband and they ended up splitting. I know that they probably would have ended up having problems eventually, but I do wonder how it would have went if we never would have introduced them to those people. My wife and I would party with them regularly, but not participating in the open relationship stuff that would go down. Whatever you say, Pope Machine got titty. Accidentally brought up the topic of Brexit and it turns out she's a raving racist. The conversation quickly turned into her yelling very loudly in a pub about how blacks are costing the NHS millions. He'd just been ignoring her rants since they got together cause he is a bit lonely, I guess. But once she pointed at a black waitress and said how she'd stolen that job from someone, she was asked to leave. I think you did the guy a favor, honestly. So I was on one of those tour trips and the tour guide was pretty awesome. She'd get drunk with us and just be part of the group. I then put some photos on Facebook of our antics, which she got tagged in, which her boyfriend saw and had a tantrum about. So last time I saw her she was crazy drunk and had to be carried back to her room. I still feel bad sometimes. Went to a local bar on a Thursday for a drink special. The place was empty. My buddy and I decided we would stick around and play pool since we had the place to ourselves. About 5 minutes later 2 girls come in and we hit it off. End up back at my buddy's place hooking up with them. The girl is cool, we keep in touch. That Saturday she asks me for a ride to her place. I take her home, she invites me and she is ready for round 2. We are walking down the hall and she stops, tells me to wait a second. She goes into her room, I hear things crashing for a second, then she invites me in. We hook up again. The next morning when she is in the shower I see what she was crashing. They were pictures of her with her husband. He was deployed. I was military too at the time. I get his name and his ship pretty easy. I knew a guy on his ship from school. I dropped the dime on her. She had been planning this party that week that she was telling me about. Turns out it was her husband's homecoming party. That one made me feel icky. Never want to find out you are Jody. Anyway, long story short, they split after he finds out. Then they get back together and have a kid literally right away. Not me, but it's a dang good story. When my father and uncle were 18, they were very drunk and walked into a diner, small town, and sat down, chatted up a girl my uncle liked while she was on a date. In the morning, they found out they interrupted a proposal. TLDR. My drunk dad and uncle cockblocked a proposal as teenagers. I love how a paragraph with like 4 lines has a TLDR, solely to make the story seem cooler. I was cheated with once via OkCupid, and I don't know if it'll actually contribute to the fall of their relationship, but I'm assuming it will. A girl and I matched. She invited me over to watch a movie and cuddle. Sex happened. She mentions her girlfriend of 6 years, so I'm like, awesome. How long have you guys been open? I'm polyamorous myself. Her response, recently. They work together in a business where my friend does HR. Friend agreed to keep me posted in the event of drama, since the chick I hooked up with ghosted me after. So I'm a resident assistant, at a medium-sized state school in the mid-Atlantic. Part of the job is working at the front desk and signing in guests of residents into the building. The software we use is actually pretty nifty. One of the best features it has allows us to sign in a guest of a resident that has been signed in within the last 24 hours, which saves us time entering in information all over again. So whenever I sign in a guest, I always ask, are you so and so, if there are a few names on the recently signed in list, in order to save time. About a week ago, I was working the desk on a Saturday night. A guy walks in with who I presume is his girlfriend. He comes up to the desk asking to sign her in, and of course I go through my normal routine asking if she was one of the names on the recently signed in list. As it turns out, there was only one name on the list, so I assumed it was her. When I asked the girl if that name was hers, she flipped out because it was a girl she had suspected of him cheating with behind her back. This prompted her to scream and curse in our lobby. Before she had to be escorted out, she dumped her soda all over his head and said she never wanted to see that cheating butthole ever again. TLDR. Accidentally let guy's GF know he's taking other girls up to his room. She dumps him for cheating. Not your fault. If the guy had been paying attention when coming in every time, he would have known this was a risk. In college, I flirted with a classmate without realizing she was married. I was 19 at the time and never even thought of checking for a wedding ring. We stopped flirting, but we were still friendly to each other. A couple of months pass and she asks to come to my place to discuss an assignment. When she shows up, she tells me she's filed for divorce and asks if I'm still interested. Importantly, she and her husband had been having problems and she assured me that they were headed in that direction before we ever met. Still, I felt bad enough about the possibility of being a contributing factor that I became a compulsive ring checker after. I was friends with this girl and her boyfriend, and since she was hanging around our group more, I got to know him better. We occasionally messaged about photography and music. Nothing crazy. They were cool. Prom happened. I had no date. They went together, of course. He talked to me a little during pictures. I brought an action figure as my date and he thought that was hilarious. The week after prom, we're all eating lunch in the band hall and my friend is crying. I go and sit by her and ask what is wrong. My boyfriend wants to break up with me because he likes you. Oh, okay. Awkward. I keep sitting there like an idiot comforting her. Later that night, the guy texts me admitting his interest. I have to tell him I'm not interested. We were only friends. I would never show interest in my friend's boyfriend. They stayed broken up. TLDR. My friend's boyfriend broke up with her the week after senior prom because he thought I was into him. I wasn't. I keep sitting there like an idiot comforting her. Oh ouch. Haha, I just read your comment about how this question previously flopped. Haha. Welp. I made the girl realize that the guy she was dating was a control freak. So they broke up. Nothing much to it. My former friend was like that with his last relationship. Why he is a former friend is another story. What made it worse was that she would intentionally make him jealous to boost her own ego. I knew they wouldn't last, but they made it to 2 years before she left him right before their 2-year anniversary. Visiting London for business. Walked into a restaurant called the Texas Embassy because it was literally the closest place for food I could find at the moment. Sat down. Couple at the table next to me heard me order and decided to ask me a question about America. Guy leaned over. I had no idea they were in a relationship and asked me if I'd been to Vegas and if it was as amazing as it looked on TV. I said if you're only going for 2-3 days, it was that amazing. The girlfriend shrieked and said they were doomed. Their relationship was doomed. She was sure of it. They both went on to explain that the boyfriend had planned a trip to Vegas with his friends. They'd always wanted to experience Vegas. His long-term GF had some pretty strong reservations, and in her mind, Vegas was all sea and strippers. I spent the next 3 hours helping them get back into a good state. Had a really great time getting to know the both of them and managed to provide a small dose of sanity for both sides. I have a picture of that couple. It's been 7 years since I've seen them. I hope they're both doing well. If he went to Vegas, I wonder if the guy spent more on C or H. And here I thought you were just supposed to lose the money gambling. One of the saddest funnier things I've ever done, but only about a year ago. I had a guy friend I'd known for a couple months and I started hitting on him, thinking he was single. I knew he had an on-off again GF, but at the time I thought they were off. Plus I was only looking for a FWB situation. We only hung out a couple times, went on a date or two. Things were nice and chill. I liked him, but I certainly wasn't looking for anything serious. Who I thought was the ex-GF one day randomly talked to me and asked what she should get the guy for his day. Me, being genuinely ditzy and ignorant, just smiled and said that's so nice of you to do that. Do what? She asked. I told her it was cool that she could still be friends with an ex. It was something I sure struggled with. Of course, the look on her face was horrified. That's when I learned they'd never broken up until she went to confront him. She lost a BF and I lost a friend. I still kinda get blamed for it even though I truly thought he was single at the time. It's not your fault really. He didn't make it clear to you, and you were under a certain impression. I assume he backed that impression up. When I was around 11-12 years old, I saw a neighbor from up the street coming out of a house about 3 blocks away from where we lived. That particular house happened to be where one of my classmates lived, with her brother and single mother. The next time I saw his wife, I casually asked her why he would have been at that woman's house. She seemed confused by it, but thanked me for letting her know. A couple of months later, my dad mentioned to me that they were getting a divorce. It wasn't until several years later that I made the connection and realized I'd played a pivotal role in the ending of their marriage. I once stole a date from my roommate while he was on it. He had made her dinner at our apartment. I didn't have plans, so like a good guy I made myself scarce in my room and tried not to interrupt. After dinner, they sat down to watch a movie. I came out and lay down on the opposite couch and ended up talking with them a bit. Over the course of the movie she and I began talking a bit more, and by the time it was over, my roommate had disappeared. I ended up walking her home after. When I got back I apologized profusely. I didn't mean to be a cock block. He was cool about it, though. Said we clicked better too and he and she did anyway. No hard feelings. She and I went out 1 or 2 more times, but that's about it. Nothing really came of it. He dodged a bullet. No one who talks during movies is worth dating.
This video was presented by Adventure Capitalist.
If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.